Well, I was inspired. I know that when you're watching this movie, we'll be in Las Vegas for Photoshop World. And I saw an ad that had an illustration of one of those lit up signs. You see that everything in Vegas has lights around the outside. So I just made a very basic kind of series of layers here to get me started. But what I really want to do is add the light bulbs around the outside. So here's how we're going to do that. I'm going to, in a separate document, I'm going to add a new layer and hide the background layer. And I want to use my elliptical marquee tool with the shift key held down. And the reason I put it on a see-through layer is because I want the light bulbs only to be on that layer. I have my colors set as the default colors of black and white, but I actually want to change. I don't want to use white. I want to use a light gray. And there's a very important reason for that. As you'll see when we actually create a brush, anything that's white becomes see-through, and I don't want anything in this light to be see-through. So now we'll use the gradient tool. I've got my gradient set to the second one, which is the nice radial one. I'm going to click and drag. And you're probably thinking that's the opposite of what I want, because I really should have something like this to look more like a light bulb. But actually, it works better this way, because the way when you define a brush by default, it always has this kind of semi-see-through look, and almost like a negative effect. So with some experimentation, I found out this works actually better. So now we'll go ahead and define our brush and call it, I don't know, bulb. I'm going to go back to this document. Let's add a layer where we want our light bulbs to go. Get our brush tool, choose a color for our light bulb, and then we'll bring in the brushes palette. This is the big brushes palette that's in the palette well, and here's the brush we're going to use. So we need to do two things to this. First of all, we need to increase the spacing so we have individual bulbs, and secondly, we have to lower the size. I prefer always to make the brush bigger than I need. I can always make it smaller. And when I created this artwork over here, I created with a stroke of 20, so I know that I need my brush to at least be a little bit under that. So something like that looks pretty good. And this is where you'll have to experiment with the spacing. If it doesn't quite work, then of course you'd have to play with the spacing and try again. But let's just see how this works. I can see from the size of my brush, it's actually pretty good. I think I'm going to knock it down just a hair more, something like that. And then at this point, I need to start painting. So I'm going to click once, hold down the shift key, and click at the other end. Do it again, come down to here. Now at this point, I'll just sort of manually paint to try and get it around the corner. And again, if the spacing isn't quite right, you might either be very lucky and have it work out perfectly, or need to adjust it, something like that. Now that looks pretty good, but of course we need some little finishing touch, and what in this case we'll do is just add a little drop shadow on here. And look at that, just like that. Let's make it just a little smaller. We get this nice little effect of our light bulbs around the outside. Now, I really want to show you that just to give you the idea that when you're creating a brush, sometimes you have to be willing to experiment like I did and find that creating a brush initially, let me go back to this way, made sense until I tried it and it didn't look very good. It was too see-through and just didn't look good. So first of all, no white, and secondly, make the brush kind of the inverse or the negative of what you want, so you'll end up with a nice effect like this with lots of different possibilities. And so just like that, you're able to add lights and any other effect you want, just like that. And a brush you can reuse anytime you want light bulbs on Vegas signs. Well, you know, you get the idea. I'm Dave Cross. I'll see you next time in the Boom Boom Room.